So today we're going to talk about the requirements to start a Medicare call center. We'll go over the general requirements for it. We're not going to get into all the details. As you will see when we go through the presentation, there is a lot involved to start a call center. We're going to go over the basics of it. We do have a unit dedicated to helping agencies create a call center. That's a unit that's through Pinnacle Financial. But today really is just to give you an understanding of some of the basic requirements and what you would need in place to start one. And if it's something at that point that you're interested in, we certainly could connect you with the right people who have the experience, who have run call centers to help you through that process. So for those who haven't attended my webinars before, I just said this a few minutes ago, but there's a bunch of new people who just came on. The webinar will run about 15 minutes, no more than that. I usually keep them pretty short. I do record these. So for future reference, if you want to attend one of our webinars, we usually have them on Wednesday and Thursday. If you want to attend one, but you can't make the time, just register and we will send you the recording. So that way you can watch it when you'd like. If you have any questions along the way, just send them into the webinar. I'm going to try to answer them at the end to the best of my ability. And having said that, I think we'll get started. So talk about why call centers are popular. Most of you probably realize that, but they certainly have exploded in popularity in the last, since COVID, actually. They're kind of trending in that direction anyway, but talk about requirements, basic requirements to have one, costs and lead generation, which is a big component of it. And then I'll answer your questions at the end. Okay, so call center popularity, I mean, the business, as most of you know, has been trending that way anyway, where call centers have been becoming more and more popular. But this trend was greatly accelerated by COVID for obvious reasons. So the people you talk to in the call center business, they really feel that COVID's accelerated the trend by 5 to 10 years. So it's pushed it ahead 5 to 10 years quicker than it normally would have been, and really just accelerated the interest in call centers and accelerated the way that people are doing business. There's been a massive increase, obviously, in the number of telesales enrollments in 2020 and 2021. A lot of that applicable to COVID, obviously. Most of you noticed the commercials from Innovative Health Solutions. They're the Medicare coverage helpline. When you see those commercials, those are all call center enrollments. So, you know, definitely a big push now enrolling that way. And of course, with the carriers, I mean, they've grown their internal telesales units to a great extent. I see a lot of people on this call that have been in the business, you know, for a while. So I'm sure you've seen that trend yourself. And again, I already see some questions coming in. I will answer those at the end of the webinar. And again, it'll only be 10 or 15 minutes long. So for the conversation today, call center versus calling and online and enrolling online. What we're talking about today is a real call center, one approved by the carriers. So it's not the same as doing a phone call with an electronic signature through Connecture or Sunfire. If you're not familiar, Connecture and Sunfire are the national enrollment platforms. We offer both of those, but they're really the two big national companies that do online enrollment. But really, that's not what we're talking about, or as we would say, a quasi call center, where people are kind of operating, or an agency is kind of operating as a call center, but they're not officially one. What we're talking about today is being an official call center approved by the carriers. So we, through Pinnacle Financial, have access to a dedicated team. They can help qualified agencies build an approved call center. They have the experience with it. They know the steps in the process, as we'll detail here in a minute. And they can certainly work with and fast track agencies through the process to be an approved call center. Of course, part of the call today, part of the reason for it, is to help you understand if you have the resources that are needed to start it, because there are substantial steps and resources needed. So setting up a call center requires planning, preparation, technology, and money, for lack of a better way to put it. There is a substantial investment in budget to do it. But first of all, you need carrier approvals. So if you're going to operate as a call center, you need approvals by the carriers. They have reduced those requirements, especially in the last year. They used to be much more substantial, but they've reduced the requirements of what's needed to become an approved call center. And when we say with the carriers, we're talking carrier specific, so carrier by carrier. The production requirements they had have certainly gone down, where most of the carriers now are requiring 500 apps a year. That's the minimum. So 500 apps specific to that carrier per year. To be a call center, there are still a few that require 1,000 minimum applications. So certainly not a small number of applications that they're going to require. It's just a minimum to keep the approval to operate as a call center with the carrier. So hitting the requirements, just kind of going through them for you here to give you a general idea. The minimum amount of dedicated call center agencies that an agency would have used to be higher. It is now down to 5 with most carriers. So a minimum of 5 dedicated full-time call center agents. Some carriers still require a minimum of 10, but most of them are 5 at this point. They also want you to have a full-time management team, including a compliance officer and a sales manager in place. And these are things that would have to be shown to the carriers to show that these positions are already, they're hired, in place, and active in order to get approval. You would need an approved quality assurance program. It would have to be something that's been set in writing, that is a program that's in place. Also need the ability to record, store, and retrieve all sales and enrollment calls. So that's a key component. You would have to have that. Something else you have to have in place is alternative language translation service. That's required with all of the carriers in order to be a call center. When we talk about marketing materials and scripts, they would have to be approved. That is carrier specific. So when we talk about approvals, it's an approval on the marketing material and scripts for each specific carrier. It used to be my understanding that you could have one generic one that was approved, but that isn't the case. They all will need to approve the script, and they have different requirements for each carrier. You'd have to meet the required compliance and data security policies and procedures with each carrier. And then also another thing to mention is you'd have to comply with carrier site visits, and from what I'm told, they will all do them. So they'd want to do a site visit once you're set up as a call center, and that would have to be approved in order to continue working with them. So if somebody's looking at the requirements to be a call center, and I know we just went over them briefly, but if it's something that you have an interest in, we have a dedicated department that helps agencies transition to telesales. It's through Pinnacle Financial. The people in that department have a background working with call centers with the carriers. They're currently working with agencies, fast tracking them through that process, and they can fast track you through the process if you have all the requirements in place. So if you have everything in place, they have been working with the carriers, they have scripts, they know what will be approved, they have experience with it to help you get through the process. But they'll have an initial evaluation process, basically a questionnaire that you would fill out prior to starting the process. So they'd have you fill out a questionnaire, make sure that you're meeting all the requirements. They'll identify the areas and address any areas of deficiencies, and they'll make you do that and address those areas prior to notifying the carriers of, that you want to try to get approval. But again, they have experience in this field and certainly can help you get approval to be a call center. However, they're going to want to make sure that you're set up correctly and can meet the requirements to do so before they start down that road with you. But this process can be again, if everything's in place, it can be fast. They can get you approved within weeks. Or if this is something where you're, not quite set up and there's steps needed, something that can take substantially longer. Just depends on where you are with the process and from a preparation standpoint. One of the big things that I think a lot of us don't consider when we think about starting up our own call center is the capital to start. Yeah, of course, you've got the employees and the management position, but one of the biggest expenses, and it was surprising to me how big it is the cash flow needed for sufficient lead volume. You're talking about, if you have a minimum of 5 call center employees, you need substantial daily volume in order to get them set up in order to keep them with the needed, lead flow on a daily basis to keep the center running. So that is certainly a major expense, especially initially. So it's something that you would have to have a budget for and able to make in order to make it work. So basically what we're looking at is, to do this, it's something where you'd have to have some infrastructure in place. You certainly have to have the budget in order to do it. It's doable. I guess I'll put it that way. It's something that can be done. We have the people in place that can help fast track you through it, walk you through the process. However, they're going to want to see that, this is something that you would be qualified to do in order to do that. If this is something that still interests you after you have gotten kind of a glimpse at the requirements, it's something you want to discuss further, you can just email me or call me. I'd be happy to talk to you a little bit more about it to see if it's something that makes sense. My email address is below, edward@crowasassociates.com, or you can call me at 203-796-5403. I see we have a couple people that are just coming on. They'll probably be surprised to know that we're more or less done. But what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to check and see if we have any questions. We probably have a few, and like I said, I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. So let's take a look. Okay, a couple questions. Someone said, sorry, I'm not hearing you well. I apologize for that. I am doing this on a different computer than I normally would be doing. I will record this. Looks like the recording is going to come out fine. So not sure if you can hear me or not, but I will send the recording out so you can review this again. If we have another question, can I be an agent for someone else's call center? Well, that's a really good question. Actually, it's a can of worms. You can be an agent for somebody else's call center, but usually how they will work that is if you're an independent agent, you're used to owning your own book, having the carriers pay you direct, and having a book that you could sell if you wanted. Usually when you work for a call center, they're going to usually hire somebody on an hourly basis. So you would not own the book. So to answer your question, yes, there are certainly call centers that would hire you. However, it might not be with the commission setup that you're used to. Another question is, will a call center work in any part of the country or only certain states are good for it? Yes, a call center can work in every state. Usually that's one of the things we talked about with expense. Oftentimes a call center will be set up so they are in all 50 states. Obviously, we've got some expenses there from a licensure standpoint. So, if you're set up as an agency and you have call center agents, you need people licensed in every state. That can get expensive when you have multiple licenses in a state from an agency and individual standpoint. But yeah, it's good in any state. Next question is a tricky one. Can you give me an estimate on the kind of budget we're looking at? Yeah, it's a really good question. Opinions vary there because the big question is how much lead volume do you need to give the call center employees initially? That's kind of debatable depending on who you talk to. But for example, let's say you're supplying them with 30 to 40 leads a day. You have 5 call center employees. Maybe you're getting your leads from various locations, but for example, maybe you're getting them in bulk from a telemarketer. You're looking at best case scenario, $10 a lead. And like I said, if you're providing 40 or 50 leads a day per person, you can do the math behind that. What is the typical pay structure for call center agents? Again, that does vary, but in general, usually what we see is it's hourly. They're usually paying them hourly, and then some kind of bonus per enrollment or some kind of incentive per enrollment, usually without renewals. So usually an hourly position, paying per enrollment, one-time payment only, and usually without renewals. Those are good questions, by the way. Any other questions? I'll hang on here for a minute to see if we have any other questions coming in. While I'm just buying us some time here, for those who just came on, we are actually about done. I usually keep these webinars pretty quick. The goal today was just to give you a general idea of what would be needed to have a call center. Like I said before, we do have a department that can walk you through this for those who are qualified. And I will record this webinar and I'll send the recording out to everybody that registered, even if you didn't attend. A couple more questions. This is a good one. How do you get agents to stay with you if they see how much they can make if they do it on their own? Well, that happens a lot. I mean, call center agents will work for a call center. After a while, they'll understand how much commission is actually available. But you got to understand, this is something, you know, they might want to go and be an independent agent, but call center agents usually are used to having leads given to them on a daily basis. It's a structure where they're getting paid a salary and, you know, or an hourly rate. So that's not for everybody to go independent. So certainly it happens, but I don't think there's quite as much turnover or that happening quite as much as you might think. Actually, this question you might want to take offline. This is another one. What is involved in onboarding a new agent? More or less, a call center agent would be a person that is licensed, trained, on payroll, you know, on an hourly payroll and ready to go, more or less. Certainly, the person asking that question, I'd be happy to talk to you more about that if you'd like. Get into a little more detail if you'd like. See if we have any other questions. Will you include questions and answers in the recorded webinar? Yes, I will. So you'll get the whole thing with the question and answer section. I did have one other question that came up earlier. I skipped over while I was thinking about it for a minute. People were asking if the people who work with us in our call center, if they're eligible for our lead program. They are. Certainly, they're eligible for our free lead program. But I guess the best way I can put it is, you know, the amount our lead program pays, the $500 per agent per month, certainly isn't enough to cover the expense of funding a call center. How is the call center compensated? Well, a call center is that's a good question. A call center is an agency. So they are perhaps at a GA, MGA, SGA, sometimes FMO compensation level. So they're compensated just like any other, like an agency would be at that level. So usually they're higher than street because they have the call center employees. They have enough contracts to get over a street contract. So they're above the CMS max allowable, but at one of those levels, GA, MGA, SGA, FMO. And they're compensated directly like an agent would be, but with the overrides, of course, that come with their agency level. And certainly for call centers or someone who's interested in being a call center that works through our team, you know, depending on the carrier requirements, certainly, you know, a higher level contract would be possible. Just depends on if you can meet the requirements. Okay, it looks like that's what we have for questions. Like I said, we will send this recording out to everyone. Appreciate you coming on today. We do not have a webinar tomorrow at 1. Usually we have one on Wednesday and Thursday, but again, I'm off this week, so I just wanted to get one in for today. Given this topic too, we've been getting a lot of questions about it, so I thought it'd be nice just to run over some of the details. I think a lot of times we get people inquiring about being a call center, and like myself, I really didn't understand how much was involved in doing it. So just wanted to give you a little bit better idea about it. Great, so appreciate you joining today. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, or you can email me if you'd like. Be happy to talk to you about this more. If you think this is something that you qualify for or would like to work towards in the future, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. And for those who kind of have the infrastructure in place, we'd be happy to have you talk to our team that specializes in setting up call centers. So thank you. I hope everybody has a great day. I appreciate you coming on today, and hopefully I'll see you on a webinar again soon. Thank you.